Welcome to our Wellness Hub. My name is Moni C. I'm your host and mindset coach. I also interview experts in the field of health, wellness, healing, and mindset to offer additional support to people in their journeys of healing and improving their lives. Today's special guest is Katie Rizzo. She's an author and grief expert. Katie, thank you so much for being here and sharing your knowledge with our audience today. Tell us a bit about yourself and what are you doing today to help people from around the world? The floor is yours.
Thank you. Well, he was a proud public high school teacher. I taught at the same high school that my boys went to school. I thought I had my life pretty perfect. It felt very perfect. Our oldest son got involved with opioids, and after fighting with addiction for 5 years, we lost him. And since then, I've been learning a lot about grief and what it means to not only lose my person, my identity and who I thought I was, and I've made a lot of friends along the way. And I have watched a lot of suffering, and I feel like I have a few gifts to give the world, and one of them is some tools for how to live in this space of grief. And the other is just to talk about addiction and how we as a society aren't really dealing with that very well. How we do deal with it is treat people who are addicted with shame and ask them to pull themselves out of it and use mind control, their own willpower. And when they can't, then we use shame and guilt. And the only people that win in that game are big pharma, the pharmaceutical companies, and the rehab companies. So I really love talking about addiction, and I love talking about grief and how I've come to live with it.
It's quite a difficult topic, and I appreciate what you're doing on behalf of everyone around the world who has lost a loved one. Now, one question that I have that probably most parents ask themselves, was there anything that I could have done? There was nothing we could have done. But what do you think?
Yeah, I think, well, first of all, I think that if you're somebody who's early in grief, I think it's very common to try to relive it. And what else could I have done? Every grief book I've ever read has so many sections on it on guilt. And there's an extra layer if your kid died or your person died from addiction or from suicide. And because I think our society sees those things as things that were in their control. And I would just suggest that if you look at addiction and suicide too, I guess, is that it's a mental health crisis. And sure, we all try to do our best. I mean, my husband and I go through it a lot. Like, well, what if we tried this rehab? What if we did that? But the statistics are so mind-boggling right now. Over 70% of people who go to rehab for opioids relapse. We've met kids who have gone to rehab over 15, over 20 times. If you think about that, if you're going to rehab and it's like $20,000, $80,000, and you're doing that, 13 times in a row, who is benefiting from that? I mean, obviously the person that is suffering from addiction isn't. I think there's a lot of guilt. I think I've been in a lot of support groups for moms who have lost their kids to addiction. There are a lot of hurting women out there and men who feel completely responsible. Just this weekend, it was Mother's Day yesterday, and which is
difficult.
It was one of those days where I was like, whoa. And I started reaching out to people, and most of my mom friends were not good. And some of them ended up using antidepressants, which is totally fine, but the anti-anxiety pills. And when you call somebody who's right on the verge of an overdose, which I've heard in my son's voice, that like slurring of the words, not making sense, and nobody would think those people shouldn't be sad. Well, yeah, they should be sad, but we're not treating it right. A mom comes in, her kid had addiction. What does the doctor give her? Benzodiazepines for anxiety. And it's just this terrible cycle. So I guess if you're listening and you want to make sure that your kid is safe, I am right there with you. I have 2 other boys who I love, and I want to keep them safe. And I feel like the only thing I've learned is to love them for who they are and to see them as individuals and not balls of clay that I can mold, and appreciate them for who they are, and to listen and ask questions and want whatever they want. So I think that's the surest way to keep a kid healthy.
So do you help women, men, both?
My book is for anyone. So my book focuses on my grief journey. It's part memoir, part prescriptive elements. There's a lot of poems. So I talk about how Nicholas's end just reminded me of his beginning too. When I found out that he was gone, I started feeling that feeling of morning sickness. It was just wildly ill and I needed to be in bed. And it was this horrific mirror of this is how we started. And I can't believe this is how we're ending too. I went through a period of time then after like the first trimester of morning sickness and kind of growing this new thing inside of me, which we call grief. And I went into a second trimester where I was watching everybody else go on, and yet I knew something was continuing to grow inside of me. And that other thing was something that Nicholas and I made together, and that's grief. And some people say, oh, grief is love with nowhere to go, but I don't know. Grief is messy and mad, and there's expectations. And I don't think my grief isn't love with nowhere to go. And so that brought me to the third trimester where I was just wanting everyone to know about what happened. And I started writing poetry. I'd never written poetry before. And I started posting it. And I wanted people to know there was this big, beautiful life, and it was Nicholas Rizzo. And he isn't here, and I want people to know about him, and I want people to know that his life wasn't something you can dismiss as like, oh, he's just an addict, because all addicts are lives, and all addicts are somebody's kid that was loved. And I really was talking about it all the time, and I felt like I was going to explode with it. I read a quote by Nick Cave, who is a musician and a writer, and he lost two boys, his sons, and he said that he had asked grief to sit next to him. And I took that as my call to delivery, and I sat down and I meditated, and I said, okay, grief, I'm going to ask you to sit next to me. I pictured what it looked like. I think it looks like a little baby orangutan, and sometimes it lays on my back and holds on to me, and the two of us are doing well. And other days, like on Mother's Day, for some reason, it just went haywire, and it felt like it was destroying rooms, and I wasn't seeing things clearly. And I really needed to sit down with my grief and be like, okay, you and I, we got some work to do. How can I get you back to regulation? Like how you're really not okay. And grief and I went, and I had a lot of weeding to do. So I sat outside and did a bunch of weeding and tried to really talk to my grief and talk to Nicholas. It was a beautiful time, and I'm glad that I could kind of live in it and with it.
And Katie, so what's the name of the book? The book is not out yet. It's going to come out soon, right? And the audience will have the link to buy it, of course.
Yeah. So the book is called The Trimesters of Grief, and it is available for pre-order anywhere that you can order books on June 12th. Also, a book of my poetry from that time is coming out The Day of the Dead, and that one is called None of Them Are You.
Yes, that would be wonderful. And one question that I also wanted to ask, you and your husband, you're still together, because many times when these types of moments, couples split or one goes completely. So how did you manage to stay together?
So far, I think this kind of shook us both to our cores. Like my ego was all about, I am a mom, I'm a good mom, I love my kids are going to be fine. And that was really rattled to like, who am I? Am I really a mom anymore? My one job was to keep him alive, and I didn't. And I know my husband, his name is Nick, I know he feels the same, watching him cry and get onto the ground just broken. I think it brought us closer together because nobody knows our son like the two of us. And we brought this kid here. I mean, my husband and I were there at his beginning, and we were there at his end. And it's a pretty deep bond between us. And I think some of that has to do with respecting one another as a human being, and that he's going to go through grief differently than I do. Men and women are completely different, but he has some very male-like properties where he likes to go in his cave and be left alone. And I am somebody who just wants to vomit talk 24/7. And we both saw the beauty in Nicholas, and I think we see the beauty in one another. And well, I don't want to lose that slice of Nicholas I have with him, and I think he feels the same with me. Before Nicholas passed, I think we really believed that I think I did. I believe that how other people acted, like I could control it a little or I could moderate it. I could manipulate it a little. But now that he's gone, I think that I see how little control I have. And I feel like it's got me in a place where I'm way more respectful of differences. And instead of getting as frustrated as I used to, like being mad, like, oh, he's so messy, or with my other, or my other two like kids, they did a really nice gift for me on Mother's Day, but it wasn't, I wanted the whole day or whatever, that it really is a reflection on me. Like that is what I need. And if that's what I need, then I need to give it to me. And something Nick and I do, which I really love, is I've been writing a lot of poetry, and I find it to be a place where I can be really in the moment. Just there's nothing else going on except for right here and now. And Nick has found playing the guitar, which he never did before, and he started taking lessons. And so the two of us have found space to respect one another. Like he's not going to try to write poetry with me, and I'm not going to try to play the guitar, I don't think. But that we really appreciate that the other person needs some time to kind of be in the moment. And maybe that's our time to be with Nicholas. Like when I'm writing poetry and he's playing the guitar, that there's a space where there's a spiritual aspect to it.
Yeah, connection. Yes. And Katie, can you give between 1 and 3 practical tips that someone can do in grief that may help them right away?
Yeah. First of all, the minute that we found out that Nicholas had passed, we had been in Al-Anon before. So Al-Anon, if you don't know, which I'm sure you do, but if you're listening, it's a group for people who love somebody who has addiction. So we had been in Al-Anon, so I had a lot of tools from that. And one of the tools I knew was that I needed a community, and I'm one of those people who loves to isolate. Grief is very isolating. So I knew that I needed to build a community. Megan Devine, who's a grief expert, says grief is going to rearrange your address book. And so I got in there and I was like, who are my new people? And I went on the internet and I found all sorts of great support groups. So my first suggestion would be to find a good support group. Go and, find your people. And it's awkward. And my husband and I went to Sweden with LIT, which is Love in the Trenches. It's a support group for people who have lost a kid to addiction. And there was something, not healing, because I'm never going to get over grief, but there was something very beautiful about living for a week with 15 other people who had lost their kids, moms and dads, and listening to them and just tools they had and gifts that they were bringing and loving them where they are. And it's been over a year, and I still can call on those people. We have a WhatsApp group and we text each other. So that's one thing. The other thing is exercising. I think that there's a body element to this. They say that you need to metabolize grief, which just seems ridiculous. But I know on Mother's Day, when I could just feel like, oh, this is not going anywhere good, I am really feeling this longing, and it's gonna eat me alive. I went for a run and it didn't cure it, but it helped. But anything that I can do in my body, I try to move every day, because it's so easy to get into that second trimester feeling of I got to get back in bed and just lay. And I still have a lot of Nicholas's old clothes that were in his dirty laundry hamper, and it's such a great thing to smell them and lay in bed and feel sad, but that doesn't get me anywhere good usually. So that's my second thing, is to exercise, and really to exercise every day. One last thing about that is we went on vacation. We went to New Orleans to a jazz fest, and I was like, oh, I don't have to exercise on vacation. But I started feeling like the walls were coming in on me from just being in the airport and in cabs and transportation. And I just needed to be outside and walk along the water or, do something with my body that wasn't in an indoor space. And then the third thing that's helped a lot is from Colin Campbell's book, Finding the Words. He's a dad who wrote a brilliant book and he lost 2 children. He talks about saying yes. And that was not something that came easy to me, but I did try. And my husband and I both did this right when it started. He said, you're going to need to say yes, even when the answer is no. And obviously don't say yes to something that is crazy, like giving away your checkbook or hurting your body. But when people are reaching out, like my first instinct was always no. Like, do you need a casserole? No, we're good. Or can I come walk your dog? No. But I just started saying yes, no matter what it was. I said yes. And, people were like, come on a retreat to Sweden. And okay, yes. Or, would you like to go to coffee with me and my daughter and talk about grief? Yes. I think there's something in the universe right now where everybody is really realizing how important community is and how important connection is and how I think connection to others help you live longer. And if you say yes to other people, you're just forcing yourself to connect. So saying yes was really big for me.
Yeah, connection in general.
Can I add one more thing?
So yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely, Katie.
The fourth thing is art. My poetry has been really important to me. I said this already, but I kind of get into like a place where I just am in the moment. I'm thinking about like, what do I see? What do I feel? What do I hear? And that's just a beautiful place to be. You watch my husband with his guitar and his art. I have a friend who lost her daughter maybe 25 or 30 years ago, but she paints, and she said she says one of the only times she's happy is when she's painting because she's right there in the moment. So art is one tool to get you in the moment. Whatever you can do to really be present, meditating maybe, or exercising again.
Creating, beautiful. Well, yeah. Katie, I feel like we could talk for hours, and I really, really thank you for opening up and your story. It's a tough one. It's a tough one, and I know it has been very difficult, and it is very difficult. But you're doing such an important work, by sharing your story with the world, because you're helping people, and we'll definitely see you again. The audience will have all this information and all these suggestions that you have. Please send them to me so that they can be under our interview. And until our next time, I send you so much love and gratitude. Thank you, Kate.
My love to you too.
Thank you very much.
No, thank you.